Okay guys, so we're going to get started by first shading in the egg. I'm going to walk you step by step for how to go through this process. Start by adding the core shadows first. Just kind of blocking them out on your object. Then, use either your blending stump or your fingers to create your midtones. Sometimes your midtones might be a smooth transition of values, sometimes they might be dramatic. It depends on your object. Remember, it's important to go back over your shadows and darken them every once in a while. Remember, contrast is key when shading with charcoal. Next, use your eraser to add the highlight back in. Remember, your eraser is just as much a drawing tool as it is for making corrections. Use the blending stump to soften the transition between your highlight and your midtone. Don't forget to add details, such as the line on the egg or the rim around the lip. Eliminate the outlines and tidy up the edges. Remember, when doing a realistic drawing, you don't want to see any dramatic outlines. These aren't illustrations or cartoons. So you always have to ask yourself when you shade in objects, what's darker, the object or the background? Notice as I start to shade in this box, I'm blending the outline into the box. That's because the shadow on the box is darker than the shadow or the background. So always ask yourself, what's darker, the area around my object or the object itself? Our final step is to emphasize the contrast. So again, make sure those highlights are nice and light and those shadows are dark and rich. Go back over and add more charcoal to your shadows. Continue this process for every object in your still life. Again, add in the core shadow, blend out for your midtone, erase the highlights back in, soften any transitions, and then eliminate the outlines. Don't forget to add the detail and emphasize the contrast. Eventually, following this process will become second nature to you. When shading in a still life, it's often a push-me-pull-you between adding in the highlights and adding in the shadow. Look for the values within the shadows. Don't just add blocks of color. Adding in flat blocks of color will often make your cast shadows appear flat and without dimension. The more details you add, the more realistic your still life will be. So again, really take the time to look at the objects. You're going to have a whole week to work on the shading for this, and I suggest you use this time wisely. The final step that we want to do is to use a white colored pencil to add in that reflected light, just those really bright highlights that you see. This is great for areas that are just too small for the eraser to reach. Don't go crazy with this white light though. Again, use this for the reflected light only. If the light is too bright, use a blending stump to soften it. And there you have your finished final. Good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.